I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we won a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this, as the nominee, next November, I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver.
Your time is up. Let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Audience, let me turn to Ambassador Haley. Why you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American families can't afford diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills. You have parents who are worried about what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. There's no transparency. We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses, and students feel unsafe. You've got an open border where terrorists can come through, and we've got wars happening all over us, and there are dangers around us. You know, everybody wants to talk about President Trump. Well, I can talk about President Trump. I can tell you that I think he was the right president at the right time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing. Let's make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down, because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, a military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador, thank you very much. And, let me just caution the audience. Let's not go down this road. We've asked you to please, keep restraining yourselves, and it would be helpful so we can hear the candidates, because these are important issues and the voters want and need to hear them. Mr. Ramaswamy, let me turn to you. Please make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. There's a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real, or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer the question. Go.
Mr. Roberts.
Sorry. This is how we get our country back. We need accountability, because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
and they're going to rig this election.
Your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to Governor Christie. Why you? Audience, let's not do this. Let's not do this. Let's let the candidates speak. Governor Christie, why you and not former President Trump?
Well, Lester, look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now. We have our greatest ally in the Middle East under fire from a terrorist group that has committed to wiping them and every Jewish person in this world off the map. We have Ukraine with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB dictator who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that. We have inflation in this country that is choking every American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world. And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president who will do those big things. We're not going to be small, and I'll say this about Donald Trump. Anybody who's going to be spending the next year and a half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country,
right,
and
Governor,
it needs to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policies matter. We have to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight
Scott,
for that future.
Senator Scott, thank you. We're going to turn now to the challenges facing the next commander-in-chief. You'll all be fielding questions first from me and the Republican Jewish Coalition, and then from Kristen and Hugh. So as we continue forward, the Israel-Hamas war is barely a month old. Tonight, Israeli troops are fighting inside Gaza City with over 200 hostages who remain captive there, and civilian casualties mount inside Gaza. As President of the United States, what would you be urging Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do at this moment? Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all with these butchers, Hamas. They're terrorists. They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe if they could. He cannot live with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the media. I'm sick of hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety. There could have been more hostages had we not acted. And I'll tell you this, I met the first plane load when they came to Florida, and one of the mothers pointed to a 6-year-old daughter, and she said, my daughter had been saying the last 2 nights, Mommy, I don't want to hear any more bombs, no more rockets. I just want to get back to Florida. So there's a difference between between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider a humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was, I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this every day when I was at the United Nations. And we have to remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. And there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy. Mr. Ramaswamy, any daylight between you and the candidates we just heard on this issue, on what you would tell the Prime Minister?
Not in terms of what I would tell the Prime Minister, no. In fact, I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right, Mr.
In which case, we've got 2 of them on stage
Mr.
tonight.
Ramaswamy, thank you. Senator Scott,
Yes.
Senator, same question to you about, you're the president, you're on the phone in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister, you tell him what?
Well, number one, I would tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, not only do you have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map, we will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America. I would say to President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran. If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have a powerful response from America, we have to be in a position of strength. As President of the United States, my foreign policy is simple. You cannot negotiate with evil. You have to destroy it.
All right, Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say to Prime Minister Netanyahu is pretty simple. America is here, no matter what it is you need at any time, to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are three things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation to protect the territorial integrity of Israel. Secondly, to make sure you protect the security and the safety of your people. Every time something happens to compromise either one of those things, it creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure, one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North
Governor
Korea.
Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate. Here it is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
We've got two of you on stage.
The second thing that I will say is I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for Iraq and Syria is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted and that we've allowed almost 100 hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal. Him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home. Him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran that were killing hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as Commander-in-Chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. Now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack. What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
Mr. Ramaswamy, would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband, mark my words, soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while respecting our Constitution.
Your time is out. Senator Scott, let me get you to weigh in on what you just heard.
Well, let me just say to every single university president in America, federal funding is a privilege, not a right. Number one. Number two, to every student who've come to our country on a visa to a college campus, your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number three, any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students on visas who are encouraging Jewish genocide, I would deport you from those campuses. We have to stand strong with our Jewish Americans. At the end of the day, we should not have our Jewish students in a library being told to hide. On our streets in New York, a Jewish citizen has the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017 because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must force the people off those campuses and
Senator
frankly,
Scott, thank you. Let me
out of our country.
Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think about what he just said?
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden doing? Not only is he not helping the Jewish students who are being persecuted, he is launching an initiative to combat so-called Islamophobia. No, it's the anti-Semitism that's spiraling out of control.
Right.
That is what we have to confront. And as president, I can tell you this, we are not going to stand for this on college campuses any longer.
All right, Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Governor Christie, and considering what he just said, you led a state with a sizable Muslim population. Last month, as you know, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy was killed in Illinois by his landlord. His His mother was also stabbed more than a dozen times in what has been charged as a hate crime. What do you say to Muslim Americans who are also feeling afraid for their safety right now?
Lester, I'm the only one on the stage who's actually had experience in dealing with this. I was appointed by President Bush to be the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey on September 10th, 2001. And when I took over that job after the September 11th attacks, I had to deal with a situation in our state that was explosive. We're the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And so first, we heard credible reports about Jewish students and synagogues being threatened in our state in the aftermath of 9/11. We made sure that we sent federal agents to those synagogues and we protected them, and the same thing should be being done now. At the very same time, I personally went from mosque to mosque in New Jersey and met with the leaders of those mosques and with the members of the mosques. And I said to them, law enforcement is on your side to protect you, regardless of your religion, if you are going to comply with the law. And we developed fabulous relationships with Muslim Americans all across the state of New Jersey, and we stopped any hate crimes that were going on either against Jewish Americans in New Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is not only do you have the kids barricaded in the library, they've said they were going to shoot up the kosher dining hall. You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need to celebrate terrorists. We don't need to celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another question for the entire field, so you will all get a chance to respond. But Senator Scott, I'd like to start with you. The United States has given Ukraine financial and military support since the war began more than 600 days ago. President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia isn't stopped now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States, and Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to defend NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package that's been offered by the president for Ukraine and Israel, that's the wrong approach. We need to focus specifically on providing Israel with the $14 billion that they need so that we show the world that we are 100% undeniably standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. And then as we turn away from that direct support for Israel, we should go to our southern border and close our southern border with the resources necessary. I believe that we have sleeper terrorist cells in America. Thousands of people have come from Yemen, Iran, Syria, and Iraq. If we are going to deal with the national security emergency at our border, we have to do it now.
Senator Scott, thank you. But just to be very clear, if you were president, if you were in the Oval Office today, would you sign off on more military funding for Ukraine, or would you discontinue it?
Bottom line is we have to first have the level of accountability that allows the American people to understand where the resources have gone. Number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources, and frankly, keeping our NATO partners safe from the Russian military is absolutely essential. As you understand, Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now, in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk, these are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time at least condemn.
Thank you. That's time.
At least to condemn their banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley,
well, she deserves to
what
answer.
is your take on more funding for Ukraine?
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see
The fact of the matter is she doesn't answer
So this
the question.
is what I will tell you.
We're driving Russia into China's
Mr.
hands
Ramaswamy,
because of
you
these
had
foolish
your time
policies.
to talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank
Ambassador,
you. The
please.
first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over. But let's also remember this. When you left Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine, don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. After 9/11, we needed a lot of friends. Now is the time to get partnerships. This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador,
we have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor Christie, what is your take And how long should Americans be expected to help fund the war in Ukraine?
Kirsten, let's remember the last time that we turned our back on a shooting war in Europe. It bought us just a couple of years. And then 500,000 Americans were killed in Europe to defeat Hitler. This is not a choice. This is the price we pay for being the leaders of the free world. And the fact is, this alliance is not just with Russia and China. Governor Haley knows this. Iran is in the middle of this as well, and so is North Korea. And they are all working to support Russia right now. And the reason they're doing it is because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work together. We must stand with all of those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you. An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
I'd like to respond.
And the absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
I'd like to
Governor
respond
Christie,
to that.
thank you. Governor DeSantis, I'd like you to weigh in on this idea. Are you concerned that this could become a wider war if Putin is not stopped now?
Well, any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media will repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may
Thank you,
respond
Governor.
to the Ukraine
Hugh.
question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel to what many people are calling the new Cold War with China. And I remind the audience that it's important for our visitors at home to be able to hear you, and especially for the people in Beijing to hear you. Many Republicans believe that the Chinese Communist Party and General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291. Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space. America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, military, when we modernize it with the focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
Governor DeSantis, my question is specifically about the Navy. It's at 291. It's going to go down perhaps as low as 280. Is it enough? And what would you build if you were going to build more?
Not enough. We have to have the ability to back up a strategy of denial of President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is, to this generation, what the Soviet Union was to the post-World War II generation. I've already released a plan. We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. You know, Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their #1 way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state, and we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly and decisively.
Senator Scott, you've been in the Congress since 2011. Defense spending has fallen over that entire period of time. Where are we going to get the money, and what would you build, and what kind of ships to deter China from attacking Taiwan?
Well, two major problems with the question. Number one, we do not have currently a defense industrial bank to allow us to have the kind of production that we need in order to keep America safe. Frankly, if we are not prepared to fight and engage in 3 continents at the same time, think about where we are today. In the Middle East, we are in the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight 3 different continents at the exact same time, we're going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary for us to achieve the goal of having a military that is ready to be lethal and come home safe.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Ramaswamy, I'm looking for specifics. What would you build? Where would you build it? When would they be in the water? How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that, just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors. So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. And today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president. I do have to recognize that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina. What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Ramaswamy,
You're kicked out of the WTO, and you actually have to have accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially, which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
Do you have a number and a plan?
I think that we need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years. I think we have to, at minimum, be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
Hugh, I'd like to
by
respond.
20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
You know, my first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your question. And my second observation is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively. And if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China. But the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective, that we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan. With a more aggressive nuclear sub-program, we'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican presidential primary debate. Please stay tuned.
America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL. This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
We all know the healthcare system's broken. It's not about you. It's about the code, the bill, the 7-minute appointment. Hi, it's Dr. Randy Tobler, and I've developed a better way that restores old-fashioned values with a holistic approach to your health care. That means affordable, available, no copay or deductible primary care. And with my 30-plus years as an OBGYN, there's added value for women and couples. Whether it's a new or nagging problem, you need a second look at a troubling diagnosis, or simply want a trusting, relationship-based healthcare experience, give us a look at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Our mission is to provide exceptional, accessible, and truly affordable care where the focus is on you, not insurance denial and cookbook medicine experts. And with your membership, there's a number of perks, including hundreds of free meds, in-office ultrasound, common diagnostic tests, and more. Interested in seeing me or learning more about healthcare the way it ought to be? Schedule an appointment or a discovery call at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
This is Christina Straight with Straight Realty, reminding you, why pay more than 4? In 2003, we had a dream to start a real estate company that would revolutionize the real estate market. Now, 20 years later, after navigating through the many markets' ups and downs, we know exactly how to help you in this challenging time. I'm Christina Straight, owner of Straight Realty. Don't give away your hard-earned equity. Give us a call today, 314-441-4444, 314-441-all-4s. And remember, why pay more than 4?
Straight Realty is a licensed broker in the state of Missouri.
Hey guys, Columbo here, reminding you that if you belong to an organization like a school or a church, or your kids are part of a group or a sports team that needs to raise money, there's no better way to do so than with a TJ's Pizza fundraiser. TJ's Pizza has been helping local organizations raise money for over 30 years to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. A local company helping local people, and there's lots of different ways TJ's can help you raise big money fast. Get started now at tjspizza.com.
Seavers JCB in St. Peters carries a full line of JCB construction equipment to get the job done safer, faster, and better. JCB compact and large excavators are designed to excel where it matters most: comfort, controllability, reliability, serviceability, and performance. Seavers JCB also stocks a large assortment of attachments for smooth and seamless productivity. Check out all JCB has to offer at Seavers JCB in St. Peters and in select Seavers equipment locations in Illinois or at SeaversJCB.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. Doug and Safe Money Radio is on 3 times every weekend, but in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com or call 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green.
This is News Talk STL
At 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at NewsTalkSTL.com.
When it comes to buying or selling a home, you've got to work with people that you trust. It's just crucial. Mike Ferguson here. And when my wife and I decided that we wanted to get a cabin or a weekend home or a vacation home, whatever it turns out to be, the first thing I did was call my friends Rodney and Jen Wallner at 314-810-SOLD. This is too big of an investment to leave to chance, and that's why I trust Rodney and Jen, and I think you should too. Vic Porcelli, I know you feel the same way, right?
Yeah, Mike, no doubt. Here's the thing. You've been in your house for 30 years. You say to your spouse, my goodness, we don't need all this room anymore. Let's call Rodney and Jen Wallner and get the heck out of here, okay? They have so many home buyers approved, ready to go, ready to pull the trigger. They might even sell your house before it hits the market. And an astounding fact that the Wallner team sells 15 times more homes per year than your typical realtor. Nobody else you should go to or call than Rodney and Jen Wallner, the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway. 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
It is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country, and they're doing it intentionally. And when you saw what happened in the last few weeks with all of this anti-Semitic, horrible stuff that their algorithms were pushing out at a gargantuan rate, this is China trying to further divide the United States of America. And this is one of the big failings among many of the Trump administration. He talked tough about TikTok. I heard him do it many times. But when it came down to it, he did not ban them when he could have and should have. And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison being put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know is going on, and the theft of American personal data and information. So in my first week as president, we would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it? Let them go ahead and sell it. But I'll tell you another reason we would do it. Facebook's not in China. X is not in China. They're not permitting a free flow of information to the Chinese people from our social media companies, yet we just open the door and let them do what they're doing. TikTok should be banned because they are poisoning American minds, and I would do it week one.
Thank you, Governor. I want to go to Governor DeSantis. Would you ban or force the sale of TikTok, regardless of whether or not China allowed American apps to operate in China?
Yes, I think that China is the top threat we face. They've been very effective at infiltrating different parts of our society. So my policy on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple. We win, they lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic, and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people. These kids get these devices and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking, it's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are going to do that, and we are going to make sure to protect the American people. It's a full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes, military deterrence. Yes, economic decoupling, but also their role in our culture. If we ignore that, we're not going to be able to win the fight.
Thank you, Governor. Ambassador Haley, speak to the parents out there. There are probably TikTok apps on half the phones in this auditorium.
No, I'm going to speak to the fact that 2 people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about the fact that they want to talk about the Chinese land from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes. You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6
I
months
didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it, and of course we banned China from buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting pitch if you're banning them from purchasing
You
land.
scrubbed
at
the
all.
website
So we've stood
last
up
week.
and
Thank
we've
you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my
before
daughter
appreciating
out of your
anybody else's
voice.
adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy
scum.
answer is actually to say that we're just going to ban one app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the CCP. Now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally, her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And I predict
Haley,
more Republicans will join it. But stop U.S. companies from turning over data to Chinese companies. That's the real
Moderators
answer,
like
not the virtue
Kristen
signaling.
don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was praised was because I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation. That is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part. That was a
You said
negotiation
they're our
you
great
could
friend
never
is
do.
what you said, Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. And so just own up to it.
You would never
You can
have been
change your
able to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation
But don't
done.
lie to the people about
I
what
have
you've said or what you've done in
against China
South Carolina.
my
You have brought
entire
them to South
career at
Carolina.
the
Ron is
United
right about
Nations.
that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by
actual
making sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought them
get
to this
any
country.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did. That's the reason we got out of the Human Rights Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped.
Senator Scott, it is your turn.
Policy
Mr.
experience with the millions you
Ramaswamy.
made afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on to the rules here, Mr. Ramaswamy. Senator Scott.
Thank you. We should. I appreciate y'all clapping for me already. This is a wonderful answer. I love this. Without any question. What we should do is ban TikTok, period. Now, we saw under former President Trump, he tried to ban TikTok twice, but was struck down by our federal courts. If you cannot ban TikTok, you should eliminate the Chinese presence on the app. period. We also should provide, in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the opportunity to give their kids permission under 14 to be on those apps. I think it's incredibly important for us as Americans to take back control of the information, especially of our kids. Where does it go? We should know that. One of the ways that we get to know that is by having a parental consent. But if we can eliminate TikTok, that is a first step. But it's not just TikTok. China continues to spy on our kids, but they're also buying our farmlands. We talked about that several times there. We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near our bases. The third thing we have to do is make sure that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally stealing our IP to compete against us. My administration, we stopped that day one, and we start making sure that we create six-figure income for jobs made in America through my strategy.
Kristen.
Hugh, thank you so much. We're now going to talk about Venezuela, where millions have fled political and economic turmoil. Many Venezuelan immigrants are settling right here in Florida. Former President Trump and President Biden have taken different approaches to Nicolas Maduro's regime with little result. Former President Trump put economic pressure on Venezuela and backed one of Maduro's rivals. President Biden temporarily eased sanctions to encourage electoral reforms. Governor DeSantis, do you see the political situation in Venezuela as a threat to the United States, and what would your approach be?
We should never rely on Venezuela for oil like Biden has had to go beg. I'm going to unleash all of America's energy potential. On day one, I'm taking all the Biden regulations, the Green New Deal, ripping it up and throwing it in the trash can where it belongs. We're going to lower your gas prices. We're going to create jobs. We're going to lower energy costs, but we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing. That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross for hours in the hot sun, holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day, going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true, and everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club, and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case, but don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that. Our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, thank you. Let's turn to one of the biggest issues for voters. That, of course, is the economy. This is a question that will go to all of you. An Iowa voter recently told NBC News, "How am I going to make sure my pantry's stocked without breaking the bank?" You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you take office to help Americans manage the cost of living? So we're talking about short term here.
My mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet. We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded the Made in America strategy, creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create in our nation and disconnect from China and from murderous dictators and tyrants around the world.
Your time is up, but let me just follow up. The idea of pumping gas, of turning on pipelines, that doesn't make gas cheaper that day. I'm talking about you become president. What can you do specifically to help people feel better about their situation or be better with their situation?
Well, actually, it does, to be honest with you. The way that the economy works is it works on the ability to anticipate excess supply versus the demand. When that happens, confidence drives our prices down because we know there's going to be a greater surplus. When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position, and as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as President of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country in order to achieve our objective. You know, Proverbs 22:7 reminds us that the borrower is slave to the lender. We have become an indentured servant too often to countries like China. By having an energy economy, we start allowing this nation to once again return.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways that would put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to be able to get through school. And I did that because I believed in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out of the cart once it's ringing up, because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register that they can't afford the full cart of groceries anymore. We have to restore the American dream in this country. What can you do on day one? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room. And I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, weigh in on this.
Sure.
Ways that you can improve people's financial condition in the short term.
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country. Increase the supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across this country. So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the White House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up, interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up, but wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy. I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride, in part, is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we've burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream. People will be more proud of a country if we're all making more money in that country. This is how we revive national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the federal
Ramaswamy,
debt to
thank
get
you.
this
Let me
job
turn
done.
to Governor Christie on that.
No, look, Lester, part of the entire premise of the question, and I agree with Tim on this, is absolutely energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel, for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well in what they say is in response to a crisis, when it's really what it's in response to is putting more money in their pockets. When they have an American president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need, that will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me come at this from a slightly different direction. Americans in rural communities are being especially squeezed by inflation right now. An Iowa State University study found that last year inflation cost rural households about an extra $5,000. How would you specifically help rural Americans who are suffering right now, Ambassador?
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina, and I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We'll cut taxes on the middle class, but we have to stop this spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exist, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources, let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan, and we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Kristen.
Americans could see Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut in the next decade because the program is running out of money. Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans. What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience tonight who's 30 years old. If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments. And the fact is, we need to be realistic about this. There are only three things that go into determining whether Social Security can be solvent or not: retirement age, eligibility for the program in general, and taxes. That's it. We are already overtaxed in this country, and we should not raise those taxes. But on eligibility also, I don't know if out there tonight, and if you're watching Warren, I don't know if Warren Buffett is collecting Social Security, but if he is, shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps. But I'm glad it's there so that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age, 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten, and hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right, Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this, because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have you determined what that age would be specifically, and what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. Right now, you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But for like my kids in their 20s, you go and you say we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age for them. Instead of cost of living increases, we should go to increases based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy, and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that, and let's make sure we do that so that they can have more competition. That's how we'll deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
And can you give me a specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to work with Chris. What I can tell you is it's going to be those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy, have you determined if you would touch entitlements and Social Security? What, if any, reforms are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with zero as the baseline and then ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the Washington, D.C. bureaucracy. Shut down redundant agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if
Mr.
we do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much. Senator Scott, weigh in here. What are you looking at to keep Social Security sustainable?
The bottom line is a simple one. We have to grow our economy and cut our spending. Let me just say to my mama and to every other mama or grandfather receiving Social Security, as President of the United States, I will protect your Social Security. The fact is that we're spending today about $1.1 trillion on Social Security, about $750 billion on Medicare, about $300 billion on Medicaid, about $400 billion on veterans benefits, $1.7 trillion on annual appropriations. If we're going to actually tame this tiger, the way you do it is not by picking on seniors who have paid into a program that deserve their money coming back out to them. The way you deal with it is, number one, you have to grow your economy. My plan, Made in America, creates 10 million new jobs, grows our economy at 5%. By doing so, you add trillions of dollars of economic activity and billions of dollars to your treasury. Number two, you have to cut taxes. When we cut taxes in 2017, I wrote the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Everybody said, well, guess what? Revenue will go down. Well, in 2018, after we wrote it in 2017, what happened? Revenue went up by 3%, and the next year it went up by another 3%. So what we know is that the Laffer curve still works, but the lower the tax, the higher the revenue. And finally, if we're going to deal with it, we have to take our annual appropriations back to pre-2020, pre-COVID levels of spending, which would save us about $500 billion in the next budget window. By doing that, we deal with Social Security and our mandatory spending.
Thank you, Senator. Very quickly, would you raise the retirement age? Would you be open to raising the retirement age, or do you rule that out?
All you have to do is go to a farm in Iowa and watch the hard work and the dedication.
Yes or
you and
no,
I
though,
having
Senator?
a conversation.
Yes or
the
no,
answer
though?
is no, but listen to this though, before you go on. Thank you. The fact of the matter is that the more physical your labor, a year or two or three more is actually challenging to the physical body. You and I might have a different perspective, but for those farmers, they're working night and day.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally to you, would you be open to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation. When you have higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the increase in the actual inflation rate. We also do need to get to at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to we talk about the retirement age is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other direction. So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy, but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country, and that's just a fact.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Thank you, candidates. And we will be right back after a quick break from Miami, Florida.
You're listening to America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Hey, Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros. When Christine and I bought our new house, we knew the gutters were an issue, and after meeting the Gutter Pros team, we knew that they were right for us. Gutter Pros is your all-in-one gutter service team that offers a variety of affordable solutions, and they even offer free estimates, so there's no cost to you to find out if they are right for your home, just like they were for ours. If you're having a problem with your gutters, contact the Gutter Pros now, because with Gutter Pros, water goes where they tell it to. Call them at 314-656-7195 or visit gutterpros.com.
Hi, Chris Arps here. Join me and the team at Royal Banks of Missouri for their annual Economic Forecast Breakfast. The event will take place on Tuesday, November 14th at the Factory in the District in the Chesterfield Valley. Hear from the experts and get a better understanding of what to expect from the U.S. economy in 2024 and beyond. Attendance is free, but you do need to reserve a spot. You can RSVP by sending an email to emails@royalbanksnet.com or by calling 314-212-1545. Royal Banks, Missouri, the community bank that is in your community.
From home improvement to replacement, do-it-yourself electrical projects can be shocking. That's where Grasser Electric can help. They've been lighting up St. Louis for years. From ceiling fans and dimmer switches to repair or replacing your electric. No job is too big or too small for your home or business. Grasser Electric will even install emergency backup generators. So call Grasser Electric today before the sparks start to fly. 636-441-5200 or go to grasserelectric.com.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote and accelerate the development of quality Christ-centered K-12 education.
Hi, this is Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation. We have an exciting new training opportunity available for public school and Christian school teachers. The Herzog Foundation Institute has partnered with the Bill of Rights Institute to offer 4 training events in 4 Missouri cities this year. These day-long professional development opportunities are best suited for middle and high school civics, government, U.S. history, and social studies teachers. Middle and high school teachers have a unique opportunity to strengthen civic knowledge and values for the next generation. We want to help teachers seize this opportunity.
Visit herzogfoundation.com/events to learn more and register for a Bill of Rights Institute training event near you. herzogfoundation.com/events. herzogfoundation.com/events.
Do I have a place for you folks as we head into these beautiful fall weather months? Espino's Mexican Grill. You can find them 24/7 at espinosmexicanbargrill.com, and you can find them 24/7, 365 at 17409 Chesterfield Airport Road, right in the heart of Chesterfield Valley, just off of Interstate 6440. Espino's Mexican Grill, nearly 2 decades in the business. I've been going there for years. They have a fantastic menu of authentic Mexican fare, not the typical stuff you get around town, and the coldest drinks around. Did I mention the margarita patio? That's what I call it, outside. Fantastic addition that Espino's put in several years ago. Espino's is a fresh alternative to the typical stuff you get. Once you go once, you'll be back many, many times. Check them out online, espinosmexicanbargrill.com, located at 17409 Chesterfield Airport Road. Best authentic Mexican fare and best coldest drinks around in town.
We're talking with our great friends, Rob and Kathy Connor from Connor Roofing. What about these storms that hit us all the time? What's going on with that in the roofs?
We haven't seen a storm season like this in years. Trees are falling on people's houses. We've never seen this much. It's just crazy.
I'm not getting on the ladder. I'm afraid of heights. That's why I trust you guys.
And Vic, if you see roofing companies at your neighbors' houses, give us a call, because if they have storm damage, it's possible that you do as well, at 314-375-7475.
Or ConnorRoofing.com. That's CONNER roofing.com.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking one pill. What can you do as Commander-in-Chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
Well, number one, we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing our border. I've already led on legislation that would sanction the Mexican cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China. Then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop 70 100,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It also allows us to deal with the human trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we are going to deal effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border. If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside, which seems to be connected to a mental health crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
Governor Christie, Senator Scott just mentioned ports of entry. 90% of the fentanyl that is seized in the United States is seized at ports of entry. We don't know what's coming in across the open southern border. You've been a United States attorney. You've taken on cartels. Can it really be done quickly? What would you do as president?
It can be done quickly in two ways, Hugh, on fentanyl. The first way is exactly as you suggest, at ports of entry. We have to beef up what our law enforcement has in terms of technology. I would invest in that as president. We need to make sure that law enforcement has every tool at its disposal to do it. Secondly, on day one, I would sign an executive order that would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply do not have the man and woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement, and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country. And the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win their lives back. When I'm president of the United States, we're going to call this what it is. It is a disease like heart disease, diabetes, or any other disease like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower demand and save lives.
Governor. Governor DeSantis, you have talked about using United States Special Forces to attack the cartels where they manufacture the chemicals that come from China. How often? How many? What does that look like?
Well, first, I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it was a fatal overdose. And when he told me, obviously the pain of losing a child is as bad as it gets, but he said what was salt in the wounds is that these elites in D.C. don't give a damn about what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action that we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the border. I'm going to stop the invasion cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to build the border wall and have Mexico pay for it like Donald Trump promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build a wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this, if someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
Ambassador Haley, if the United States uses special forces in Mexico without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south, what would your colleagues at the United Nations think about that?
I don't care what my colleagues at the United Nations think. What I'll tell you is, first of all, you have to go to the source. We have lost more Americans in the Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how quick that flow stops. The second thing is we'll send special operations in to take out the cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release. Instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That is the way we'll deal with the border. Those are the things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree with Chris. One of the first things that we have to do is really focus on mental health and addiction centers. It is something that is needed in our country terribly because we don't deal with mental health, and someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction, and we owe it to them to treat it like the cancer that it is.
Mr. Ramaswamy, special forces in Mexico shoot them stone cold dead at the border?
One thing I just want to say in how we're talking about this issue is, like Ron, I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose. Right. That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it what it is. It's closer to bioterrorism. And I say that because as it uniquely relates to this crisis, that does warrant more aggressive means to deal with it. So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico. I think he's even mentioned me obliquely in speeches to say that somebody who would do this shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. Well, AMLO, get out of the way. There's going to be someone else in charge. I hope to build a good relationship with that next president of Mexico. We'll use our own military to seal our own southern border. What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as far as I'm aware, who has actually visited the northern border. There was enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans. So we got to just skate to where the puck is going, not just where the puck is. Don't just build the wall, build both walls. Can't just complete the wall, use the military to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're actually building underneath that wall.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what needs to be
Ramaswamy.
practical and actually get this job done.
Thank you. Kristen.
Thank you, Hugh. Let's talk now about last night's election results. Abortion rights supporters saw victories in Ohio and Virginia following earlier wins in states like Kansas and Kentucky. Governor DeSantis, first to you, how do you see the path forward for Republicans on this issue?
Well, I stand for a culture of life, and I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot. I'm reminded of a story about a young mother who was struggling in Jamaica about 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby, born poor in Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022. We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happened to the pro-life cause, they have been caught flat-footed on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that. But let's just be clear. The Democrats have taken a position. They will not identify the point at which there should be any protection all the way up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed the abortion issue and how Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you see the path forward?
I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people. This is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband Michael was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, when you look Post Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life. So when we're looking at this, there are some states that are going more on the pro-life side. I welcome that. There's some states that are going more on the pro-choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's find consensus. Let's agree on how we can ban late-term abortions. Let's make sure we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can and stop the judgment. We don't need to divide America over this issue anymore.
Thank you, Ambassador. Senator Scott. Senator Scott, I'd like you to weigh in. How do you see the path forward, and what do you make of what Ambassador Haley just said? Do you see this as a consensus issue?
Well, I'm 100% pro-life. I have had 100% pro-life voting record. I would certainly, as President of the United States, have a 15-week national limit. I would not allow states like California, Illinois, or New York to have abortion up until the day of birth. I certainly wouldn't not allow for governors, former governor, Democratic governor of Virginia, who talked about infanticide. We need a 15-week federal limit. 3 out of 4 Americans agree with a 15-week limit. 47 out of 50 countries in Europe agree with a 15-week limit. I would challenge both Nikki and Ron to join me at a 15-week limit. It is in our nation's best interest, and frankly, I think it's unethical and immoral to allow for abortions up until the day of birth. We have an opportunity in this nation to stop that reckless behavior from states like California, New York, and Illinois. I'd go a step further. In my parents' plan, we start by talking about funding, block granting resources to crisis pregnancy centers. We should support adoption. There are a number of ways that we can say to the expectant mother that we stand with you. We should not only be pro-life before the child is born, we should be pro-life after the child is born just as much.
Senator Scott, thank you. Ambassador Haley, your name was invoked. Would you support a 15-week federal limit?
I would support anything that would pass because that's what would save more babies and support more moms. But you have to be honest with the American people, and I appreciate that Tim keeps calling me out for this. But Tim, there was a bill last year. Lindsey Graham sponsored it. You didn't even co-sponsor the bill. And then when you first were interviewed on this, when you ran, you wouldn't even say you were for 15 weeks. What I am saying to the American people is, let's see what we can agree on. Let's bring people together and decide what we can agree on. I will sign anything where we can get 60 Senate votes, but don't make the American people think that you're going to push something on them when we don't even have the votes in the Senate. It's important that we're honest about that.
Let me go to Mr. Ramaswamy. Would you support a 15-week federal ban, and what is the path forward on this issue?
I just wanted to say, I think Nikki Haley did invoke being honest, and I just want to give credit to Tim Scott. He's honest about where he stood, and I think you should be honest, not making a political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign it? Here's my view on this. Speaking as a man, they say men have trouble speaking on this issue. I don't think we need to be that way. It was my home state of Ohio, I'm upset about this, yesterday, that passed a constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a right to abortion all the way up to the time of birth without parental consent. Why? It's back to that Republican culture of losing. The Republicans did not have an alternative amendment or vision on the table. I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state of Ohio we talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing ingredient in this movement, sexual responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests that are 100% reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one. That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of leadership
thank you.
to actually lead us forward and unite the country on this
Thank you.
honesty.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Governor Christie, as you know, federal limits are important to a lot of Republicans. Where do you stand on this issue, and what is the path forward for Republicans?
For 50 years, conservative lawyers have been arguing that the federal government should have absolutely nothing to do with this issue constitutionally because it's nowhere in the Constitution. And then Dobbs comes and we finally gain that victory, which was the creation of a constitutional right out of thin air that didn't exist. And now we have people running to say, let's short circuit the states from doing what they need to do, and let's go right to some type of federal ban at a certain number of weeks. And people on the stage have been all over the place, 20 weeks, 15 weeks, 12, 6. Look, the founders were really smart. And this is an issue that should be decided in each state. And I trust the people of this country, state by state, to make the call for themselves. Now, it's going to lead to a lot of divergence. In Oklahoma, you can't get an abortion unless the life of the mother is at risk. In my home state of New Jersey, it goes up to 9 months that you get an abortion. I find that morally reprehensible. But that is what the people of our state have voted for. And we should not short circuit that process until every state's people have the right to weigh in on it. But here's the bigger issue, Kirsten. The bigger issue is, and Tim began to touch on this, we're not pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten, it's for the whole life.
All right, Governor, thank you. Candidates, thank you. We're going to take a final break, and when we come back, we'll hear from all of you with your closing statements. This is the NBC News Republican presidential debate. We'll be back right after this.
America Decides 2024
on News Talk STL.
Investment advisory services offered through OWLFI LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor. Insurance and education services offered through Serenity Wealth Management.
Are you or someone you know providing or managing care for a loved one today? Did you know there could be more cost-efficient solutions for funding long-term care, even those currently living in a skilled care facility today? Financial strategist and long-term care specialist Chris Cooper of Serenity Wealth Management can show you tax-efficient strategies available to help your family manage care concerns. Whether planning for the future or managing care for a loved one today, solutions exist to provide the financial peace of mind you deserve.
Hi, I'm Chris Cooper, and I'd love to send you a free copy of my new book, A CPA's Guide to Tax-Free Strategies for Long-Term Care. You'll learn about strategies to empower you and your family, protect your savings, and make sure your loved ones get the quality of care they deserve.
Request your free copy of Chris's book by visiting SerenityLTC.com. That's SerenityLTC.com.
Well, it's fall, y'all. Time to give Hanson's Tree Service a call this fall, 636-379-1830, 24/7, always available at hansonstree.com. Fall is the perfect time to spruce up and beautify your landscape beds with that fantastic organic mulch in bulk from Hanson's. What else should you do? How about clear out all the overhanging trees, get rid of all the old stumps, generally clean up the homestead as we head towards Old Man Winter. They're standing by to help you today, 636-379-1830, or 24/7, always available at hansonstree.com, hansonstree.com.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to visit my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton before your next trip into the great outdoors. For decades, Bluff City Outdoors has covered all the needs for area fishermen, and they'll always have all the best bait, tackle, and gear for your next trip on the water. And now they cover all your bow hunting needs, including their state-of-the-art indoor archery range and techno hunt system, open every day for you to come shoot, or you can join a league. Follow Bluff City Outdoors on Facebook and learn more at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
Dealing with storm damage? Don't panic. Eureka Contracting and Roofing is here to help. With the recent storms, they understand it can be overwhelming. Remember, you don't have to rush into signing with the first door-to-door salesman. Don't let pushy sales tactics force you into a contract you're not comfortable with. Before making decisions, take a moment. Give the folks at Eureka Contracting and Roofing a call like I did for a no-pressure inspection. They'll assess the damage, determine if it's insurable. If it is, they'll guide you through the insurance process, and your only out-of-pocket expense will be your deductible. Eureka Contracting and Roofing, 636-938-ROOF. EurekaContracting.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Hey guys, Ken Kruger. I've gotten to know these guys really well over the last few years. Yes, St. Louis Bath and Renovation. They're the most trusted name in bathroom remodelers in the St. Louis area. In fact, if you need bathroom repairs, complete bathroom remodeling, or handyman services, call St. Louis Bath and Renovation at 314-477-6476 or email Rob at stlbr.com. That's St. Louis Bath and Renovation.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Hey, Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros. When Christine and I bought our new house, we knew the gutters were an issue, and after meeting the Gutter Pros team, we knew that they were right for us. Gutter Pros is your all-in-one gutter service team that offers a variety of affordable solutions, and they even offer free estimates, so there's no cost to you to find out if they are right for your home, just like they were for ours. If you're having a problem with your gutters, contact the Gutter Pros now, because with Gutter Pros, water goes where they tell it to. Call them at 314-656-7195 or visit gutterpros.com.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
And why you and not former President Trump would be the party's best choice to tackle these important issues. You each have a minute. Senator Scott, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening. We should reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to...
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against Joe Biden. I want us together to win the war for our Christian conservative values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, you have...
That's why I'm asking you for your vote.
Thank you for hosting tonight. Listen, it's a gift to be an American. And I'm running for President of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger. And I could see in the eyes of Americans their exhaustion. Their exhaustion from the petty, personal politics that have taken over this country over the last number of years. I'm running for president to be a president of consequence, to do the big things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world, and we stand up for what we believe in right here at home. And it's not to eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
Governor, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy now. Your 1 minute.
We've talked a lot about foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black and white or Democrat and Republican. It's between those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a fringe minority who hates the United States of America. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief to lead us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory. I'll shut down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China. I'll keep us out of World War III, and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now, so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
All right,
just
Mr.
tell us the
Ramaswamy,
truth so we can have an
your
honest
time is
debate.
up. Ambassador Haley, you have 1 minute for your closing.
Thank you. The world is on fire. We have a war in Europe. We've got a war in the Middle East. We've got China on the march. It is very important that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to know the difference between good and evil. We have to know the difference between right and wrong. We need to know that a strong America doesn't start wars, a strong America prevents wars. And the way we can focus on that is to make sure we go back to the soul of America and be strong and proud again. And we can't do that. We can't win the fights of the 21st century with politicians from the 20th century. We have to move forward, and we can do this. I know we can do this. So join our movement. Go to NikkiHaley.com, and we will once again show what America that's strong and proud looks like. God bless.
Ambassador, thank you. Governor DeSantis, your closing. You have 1 minute.
We must reverse our country's decline, and that is going to require leadership. I will take the hits, I will take the arrows, I will take the barbs, because it's not about me, it's about you. It's not about the past, it's about your future. We are going to fight for you. I am going to win for you and your family, and I'm going to lead this country's revival. As a veteran of the Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always put service above self as president. As the father of 3 young kids, I'm going to ensure that this country is left to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And as the governor of Florida, I delivered on all my promises, and you can trust me to deliver for you as the President of the United States. I am asking for your vote. I'll be a nominee that will be able to win the election. I will be a leader you can be proud of, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis, thank you. That is going to conclude our debate. The next line says that the audience can hold their applause. That didn't work out. But anyway, for just a few more seconds, I'll ask you to just hold the applause. On behalf of my fellow moderators, I want to thank the candidates for their time and for this spirited debate. Really good, deep conversation, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you as well to our wonderful hosts here at the Adrienne Arsh Performing Arts Center. On behalf of the Republican National Committee and all of us at NBC News, good night, everyone, from Miami.
So that wraps up the third presidential Republican primary debate. You're listening to 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with Vic Porcelli and Katie Fitzpatrick. We are going to be here with you for a while, reacting and analyzing all of the things that we just heard from these presidential candidates. We're also going to go live out to our watch party at Westport Playhouse and talk to Mike Ferguson, Tim Jones, Chris Arps, and the crew out there. Lots happened on that debate stage tonight and a whole lot to talk about, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to special coverage of the presidential debate here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Freedom isn't just a word. It should be a way of life for all Missourians. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a state where you're free from excessive taxes, regulations, and corporate handouts, and free to send your children to the school of your choice? That's why we at the Show Me Institute put together our 2023 Missouri Blueprint, a roadmap on how the state can progress to a bright future. The blueprint covers policy ideas from taxes to government transparency, from education to healthcare, and more. Our vision is for Missouri to be a place where entrepreneurs can pursue their dreams. Parents are free to direct the education of their children, and a growing economy provides opportunities for all. Critical to achieving this vision is a government that understands the value of freedom in the lives and future of our people. Check out our 2023 Missouri Blueprint, moving Missouri forward at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Getting a new floor for your home can be intimidating and a little scary, but that's not the case when you go to Michael's Flooring Outlet. Katie here, and my mom and dad used Michael's, and they had a great experience. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 30 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Shop in-store at one of their 3 locations in Creve Coeur, Dardine Prairie, or St. Peters. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
The third Republican presidential primary debate just wrapped up from Miami, and you are listening to special coverage here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo in studio with Vic Porcelli and Katie Fitzpatrick. In just a few minutes, we're going to go out to our friends at the debate watch party at Westport Playhouse and check in with them and see what our crowd thought of this debate, Vic. But before we check in with Mike Ferguson out there at the debate watch party, what did you think of this debate tonight? It was quite a bit different as far as like staying on the tracks. And I don't know if it was because there was less people or if they just did a better job controlling it, but this was a much more straightforward answer the questions debate than the previous two.
I don't want to give Lester Holt that much credit.
Well, I didn't say it was his. I didn't say it was because of Lester Holt.
But he does. He does.
Oh, he will.
Did you see me control those terrible Republicans tonight? I was just great. But I think there was also a rule in there that if you talked over somebody else, you lost some time on your next answer. I could be wrong on that, but I thought I remember that in the beginning of the debate. I think I don't want to steal your thunder, Tony, but I want to say something about Vivek Ramaswamy and then get your unbelievable analogy of him. He started out with thunder and lightning, saying that this debate should be hosted by Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and Elon Musk, right? And he said...
And it shouldn't be on NBC.
It shouldn't be on NBC. You guys are dishonest. 2016, they tried to rig 2016. 2020 was rigged. And then he said something interesting. He said, would you have a Democratic debate and have it hosted by Greg Gutfeld? It's a great point.
It's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Why are the... Well,
was
Hugh,
a great...
Hugh was great.
What a moment at the beginning there. I thought that was... The first big moment of this debate was when Vivek said that.
So give us your analogy of Vivek Ramaswamy, which I love.
So during as we're watching this here in the studio, I said to Vic and Katie that Vivek Ramaswamy is Mark McGwire. He is Mark McGwire. He either hits a home run, and it is not just a home run. He either knocks it out of the park,
Which that first
spectacular,
line was.
just bomb, or he looks terrible and swings and misses at 3 pitches in a row and strikes out.
And that was him talking about
Haley's daughter was a good example of that. It's one or the other. And I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it's
a fact.
It's a fact. He either fails spectacularly. Everybody in St. Louis, all the baseball fans, we're about to talk to Mike Ferguson. He'll remember Mark McGwire, when he would strike out, he would spin himself into the ground, and he would look like a little leaguer.
Yeah.
And then the next time up, he'd hit a 550-foot bomb and look invincible. It's not like he ever just gets a base hit.
Yeah.
It's either spectacular or
that
was not a good look.
I think Vivek took the early thunder. I think Ron DeSantis, when he said straight up shoot him dead, when he was talking about the cartel and the fentanyl, who doesn't love that line, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that Nikki Haley kind of won over the crowd, I guess, you know. I think I want you two to both, and at the end of the show, we'll give our opinion on this. If the next debate was just 3 people, who would those 3 be? Can we do that when we come
Oh,
at,
yeah, I
at the
love
end of
that.
the show?
I love that.
What'd you
Yeah.
think about tonight?
I thought that if you wanted to win the debate, you had to have a moment. And unfortunately, Ron DeSantis just cannot have a moment. He is just, this is not his platform. This is not the way he operates. And it's sad because I think he has a lot of good policy strategies. And I think he's implemented so many great things as the governor of Florida that you could take and then run with as the president and say, see, I've actually implemented this and it was successful in a state and therefore I could do this probably as a country. But the problem is that you're also working in a confined area where people are looking for the zinger. They are looking for the Vivek Ramaswamy moment where you're like, dang, dude just came out and was like, first of all, we failed miserably as Republicans in Virginia. Can we talk about that? The other person that it's sad to say, but Tim Scott, has such a great demeanor for the Senate, and he has such a great calming presence, and that is why he is where he is today. But when you are the president, you do have to have a fire under your butt, and you do have to care very, very hard about situations and have that be projected so people can cling on to that and feel that passion.
Mm-hmm.
And his demeanor does not show that, and therefore I think both have great policies, but they're not cut out to be the president, maybe next go round.
Yeah, that line by DeSantis at the end, the shoot him dead line, was his saving grace because
Yeah.
I agree, Kate. And it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
But it was pretty
but
good.
It was good. but if it wasn't for that line,
Right, you're right.
I
No
don't know.
moment, no moment.
He had no moment tonight, and it was that.
And a lot of the things he was saying were Trump policies.
Yeah, and it was very. To
I'll
me,
just vote for Trump.
To me, that was very similar of the first debate, where he just kind of
Mm-hmm.
played defense, don't make mistakes, blend into the background, and that's not going to get the
That's
job
not
done.
this forum.
That's not going to get the job done. And as far as everybody else is concerned, I mean, I like what Tim Scott has to say a whole lot. I loved Vivek's home runs, and I groaned at his strikeouts.
Yeah.
But I didn't see anybody make any big strides tonight, any big difference makers.
Yeah, bottom line, it's a
and-
run for second
yeah.
place.
And has Lester Holt,
Are you gonna
maybe
say
I don't
that?
pay enough attention.
Do it, baby. Say it.
You can put a whole nother face. He's got room for a whole nother face
Yeah.
on that forehead. Why doesn't it go back? Why does it go so far up?
He's got a 5 head.
It's incredible. Another thing that is incredible is our morning
I can't
show.
believe it. I can't believe it.
Hosted by Mike Ferguson, who is live out at Westport Playhouse in our debate watch party with the team from Americans for Prosperity. Mike, thanks for your time tonight. Tell us about the audience out there, the reaction to the debate at the watch party.
Okay, we had a lot of fun at the Westport Playhouse. I don't know if we had as much fun as you guys are having right now, but we had a lot of fun out there. It was great because we set some ground rules there. Camelia Peterson from Americans for Prosperity literally handing out noisemakers saying, if you hear something you like, feel free to come.
love it.
That's
If you
great.
hear something you hate, feel free to start jeering. So it was listening to and watching a really, I thought, a pretty good debate, with always the constant threat that we were going to go Rocky Horror Picture Show on their ass if they got out of line.
Love
That's
it.
great.
So unofficial survey results, just from what you could tell, who got the most positive reactions and who got the most jeers?
I will. Let me start with the jeers. Chris Christie got the most jeers.
Yeah.
But almost all of those started before he said a single word. So they just said, Governor Christie, we're going to ask you, and he got jeered. On that. Vivek Ramaswamy got a lot of cheers at the very beginning. You all were talking about that way he just lit up the media. And don't forget, he lit up Ronna McDaniel, which is way overdue as well. But then, and I love your home run analogy, your Mark McGwire analogy, it's like he got a great reaction, so just keep doing the same thing. And at some point, you're swinging and you're missing. And at some point, you become kind of annoying. When he decided to go after Nikki Haley's daughter, he just kind of came across as a jerk. I do think he recovered, to some degree. But what I think a lot of these candidates were looking to do is to get Republican voters to look at them as being presidential. And it's funny because, I did an assessment of what to look forward to in this debate on my American Viewpoint show, and we did this on the morning show as well. And one of the things that I mentioned specifically is I said, if I'm Nikki Haley, you want to avoid taking the bait because Vivek Ramaswamy wants to start a slap fight with her in particular. And she addressed where she had to, but she also ignored him and kind of dismissed him a couple times. I thought Nikki Haley had a very strong debate. I think, Tim Scott did not have a strong debate. Like you said, Katie, everybody likes Tim Scott, but are you looking at that debate and saying that guy came across as strong, forceful, he's going to put a fear in China? No, he's a really nice guy who's really good on policy, who's very conservative. Thank goodness he's in the Senate, so I don't know that he helped his campaign. Ron DeSantis is just not a debater. I mean, I thought he had good answers. I think he's got excellent policies. He's got tremendous success in as a governor in Florida. But I think his strategy for moving forward in the campaign is not going to rely on the debates. And I think probably what he wanted to do was, look presidential up there. Nikki Haley had a strong debate again. I thought she's good at this. I thought Chris Christie had some, I hate to say it because I'm not a Chris Christie fan, but he had a couple good answers on military stuff. And he had a couple good answers on when it comes to dealing with, anti-Semitism and some of the college campus issues. So overall, the biggest winner, if I had to say there was one, was a little bit of the Republican Party gaining back some credibility after not being able to govern in Congress. They at least had some candidates who gave the impression that we are capable of governing, and I think that was one of the biggest things for the party. As far as the candidates themselves, I think you have to say that Nikki Haley had another really good performance. Chris Christie's was good, but I don't think he's going to gain much because I just think there's a very low ceiling on where people are going to go with him. And Vivek Ramaswamy lighting the fire under, I think, a lot of people who are just sort of in that, I'm not even sure what camp we want to call about, but that really anti-establishment outsider camp in the conservative movement. They probably had liked a lot of what he had to say.
So Chris Christie he's not seriously there to run for president, and he may have raised his brand, on the anti-Trump Republican brand. But I agree with you about Ron DeSantis. He's not good at these debates, and we're learning that. But Ron DeSantis still thinks that he can be president. And you can't be president if you can't connect with the American voters in a debate setting. And I didn't see anybody tonight, Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley. I agree she continues to have pretty good debate performances as well. But I didn't see anything today that closed any type of gap on the huge lead that Donald Trump has in this field. Did you?
No, not really. I think, but I think that they all probably had realistic goals that they weren't going to do that tonight. I think what they want to do is make sure that there's, that everybody knows, if Donald Trump is not your candidate, then I'm your candidate. And they're going to have to bank on something going bad for Donald Trump in the next several months. But I don't think they know. I think they know they're not going to catch up on the polls because of a debate. But I do think that they are looking to gain momentum or build momentum.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
I think they could have done that.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere though, and they haven't started yet. And I didn't think that anybody really did anything to jumpstart that attempt at taking down that huge lead that Donald Trump has. Mike, really appreciate you checking in with us. We're going to continue to check in with folks out there at the Debate Watch Party as we go through our coverage here. And we'll be listening tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. Mike, thanks so much. And we'll be listening to you tomorrow. Have a great night.
And I want everybody ready to call and tell me who they thought won the debate, too. We're going to have a lot of fun with this tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. Vic, before we take this next break, and we're going to go back out there to the Westport Playhouse, talk to Tim Jones and Chris Arps as we go through our debate coverage here. But what I just said to Mike about not seeing anybody, I was saying on our show all week, and Mike just said it, nobody's going to overcome 50 points in the polls in one debate. But you got to start somewhere. And I didn't see anybody start tonight.
I mean, these debates, these Republican debates, are more unique than any other set of debates, I think, in political history, where the front runner is not there, right? And it does give people like Chris Christie had to start the night with the Trump bash, right? First word. Lester Holt had to start the night with the Trump bash. First words out of his mouth were Donald Trump. And I don't think one debate, 2 debates, 3 debates, or 4 debates make a difference. Good TV, I guess. Nobody's going to catch Trump. I mean, it's fine. We can see maybe for the future, cabinet position, vice presidential pick maybe.
Definitely want to talk to you about that as we go through the coverage here. If you see anybody as a Trump supporter that you like in the cabinet or VP standing on that stage tonight. You are listening to special coverage of the presidential debate, and we will go back live out there to our debate watch party at Westport Playhouse, and we'll talk to Tim Jones next here on 101.9
You're listening
94.1 News Talk STL.
It's 2024.
Sorry about
on
that.
News Talk STL.
This is Christina Straight.
Investment advisory services offered through OWLFI LLC, a SEC registered investment advisor. Insurance and education services offered through Serenity Wealth Management.
Are you or someone you know providing or managing care for a loved one today? Did you know there could be more cost-efficient solutions for funding long-term care, even those currently living in a skilled care facility today? Financial strategist and long-term care specialist Chris Cooper of Serenity Wealth Management can show you tax-efficient strategies available to help your family manage care concerns. Whether planning for the future or managing care for a loved one today, solutions exist to provide the financial peace of mind you deserve.
Hi, I'm Chris Cooper, and I'd love to send you a free copy of my new book, A CPA's Guide to Tax-Free Strategies for Long-Term Care. You'll learn about strategies to empower you and your family, protect your savings, and make sure your loved ones get the quality of care they deserve.
Request your free copy of Chris's book by visiting SerenityLTC.com. That's SerenityLTC.com.
This is Christina Straight with Straight Realty reminding you why pay more than 4. In 2003, we had a dream to start a real estate company that would revolutionize the real estate market. Now, 20 years later, after navigating through the many market's ups and downs, we know exactly how to help you in this challenging time. I'm Christina Straight, owner of Straight Realty. Don't give away your hard-earned equity. Give us a call today, 314-441-4444, 314-441-all-4s. And remember, why pay more than 4?
Straight Realty is a licensed broker in the state of Missouri.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back live into the studio here at 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo with Katie Fitzpatrick and Vic Porcelli reacting to the third presidential primary debate for the Republicans in 2024. Vic, did you see anybody on that stage tonight that endears themselves to you as a Trump supporter, as somebody that you'd like to see on Trump's team, or do you not like any of these
No,
candidates?
I like Vivek Ramaswamy. I like how, he hasn't bashed Donald Trump at all in any of these 3 debates. In the first debate, he spent a lot of time talking about what a great president Donald Trump was, and he says a lot of things that Donald Trump would say if he was there.
We are live also today, of course, out at Westport Playhouse and our debate watch party. Let's go back out there now and talk to Tim Jones. Tim, it sounds like it was a great atmosphere out there at Westport Playhouse tonight with a lot of reaction to these candidates throughout the night. That is fantastic. What are your initial takeaways of what we just saw and heard?
Yeah, and Vic, it was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show of politics. Right?
I love it.
Ton of fun. Or like Mystery Science Theater 3000, where the guy and his little robot friends sit there and make fun of the B movies all the time. But no, this was great. And you know what? Let me just say this. You had 5 people up on the stage who I think some of them we all like more, others we all like less, whatever. And even with goofy Chris Christie, which I don't know what he's doing up there, but if any of them became president tomorrow, we would all as Americans, I think, feel much more comfortable, safe and secure in our persons, our property, our prosperity, and our safety around the world. Wouldn't we? I mean, because that just shows how deep the bench is. Now, that being said, I say for the next debate, clear everybody out and let Vivek and Nikki just go toe-to-toe, baby. Bring it, you know?
You know what? That's interesting. You have so Vic, let's do this right now. Vic, you had said that if earlier you said narrow it down to 3, if you could narrow it down to 3.
Right.
So if you could narrow it down to 3 for the next debate, just for you, Tim, obviously Nikki and Vivek, who would be your third person that you'd like to see on that stage?
You know, for me, it's a toss-up between DeSantis and Scott because they both have great policy prescriptions, right? Like, again, I would feel comfortable with either of them as president of the United States because I think they're smart guys. They're serious about public policy. I think they are decent politicians. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become a governor of the, second, third largest state in the country and a U.S. senator. Incredibly accomplished, incredibly good. There's something that they're lacking in that it factor that is having trouble taking them to a national audience and having that national audience embrace them. We all sit there and we go, okay, yeah, what they say sounds good, but I'm not getting moved. You know, the spirit's not moving me. But when you hear, you know, especially Vivek, man, Vivek came in and just, I'm sorry, pardon my French, but it's late, right? We're in the NC-17 part of the night, aren't we?
No.
Vivek just came in and dropped balls on that stage.
He did.
Right?
That
that
thing about NBC at the attack on Ron, I mean, that beginning was about as great of a beginning of a debate I have ever seen.
I agree with that.
And you know, I don't appreciate as much some of his personal attacks were a little gratuitous, but I agree with you. That opening from him where he went after the media and honestly, Ronna McDaniel, everything was spot on. It was absolutely factual. You know, is it really an attack when all you're saying is all you're doing is restating facts? And that's what he did. He completely, you know, I love how he just did a drop kick on NBC on their debate night because they deserved it, right?
They did.
Kristen Welker deserved to be called out for spreading. Talk about, you know, the fake phony hoaxes. You know, they're always attacking Donald Trump, you know, for allegedly not telling the truth when they perpetrated one of the biggest lies in American history. And I love that he called them. He kind of was like, all right, here's going to be the rules of the road tonight. This is not your debate. This is our debate. And I liked how he did that because I think that also gave the other candidates the courage to speak frankly and truthfully and forget about the fact that you had a bunch of totally in the tank left-wing liberal moderators, except for you, Hewitt.
Tim, I think you make such a great point about you know, Donald Trump obviously has this huge lead. It looks insurmountable. It looks like he's going to be the nominee. But if for some reason he wasn't, there's a lot of comfort or a lot of confidence that you can have in some of these other candidates on that stage. That doesn't exist on the Democrat side. And yet we see another night like we did in 22. We saw it again last night where Democrats, even in this environment, where they have the weakest, most failed president that I think I could ever think of, they still manage to win elections around the country. How is that possible when you compare the two parties as they are? How do Democrats keep winning elections in the United States, especially after every day that goes by of this Biden administration?
You know, I have the words that Dan Bongino said today are kind of echoing in my head right now. He said, apparently we haven't hit rock bottom hard enough, right, in the country. Because to your point, Tony, with everything this country has and been put through, left-wing liberal policies that have been perpetrated on America, not by Joe Biden, because I don't know that he knows who he is or what day it is most of the time. You know, my co-host Chris Arps always points out that Joe Biden does one event a day if we're lucky, right? And then they put him back to bed. Running that administration have been can vote Democrat these days after the last 3 years of our country. I think a lot of it is the fact that we're all witnessing now. You know, we've all been, you know, those of us who are of a certain generation or older, we are now just now beginning to understand the brainwashing and the propagandizing that people younger than us have been subjected to on college campuses across this country over the last many decades.
All of those folks are now in their late 20s, 30s, and 30s, and they're starting to get into positions of power in this country. A big chunk of them are called the Squad in Congress. We literally have congressmen and women who think the state of Israel should be decimated from the planet Earth, and that the Jewish people should be genocided. One of them was just censored for that very fact on the floor of the House yesterday. So, Chris and I were talking today quite a bit about all of this political reaction, these political results, and the results of last night being downstream of decades of a broken, corrupt culture in this country. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to have an awakening, but part of it is hitting rock bottom. So I talked today briefly during my stump speech about, despite the fact there was a lot of doom and gloom yesterday, and there was, and we've got to really figure out what we're going to do around certain issues that appeal to voters to protect things like abortion, which they're now calling reproductive rights. What about the baby's rights, right? But so in order to address those issues, we have to now think about what we're going to do to have a different message on all of that, right? And so, it's so complicated. But when you look at a couple of other results around the country that the media did not talk about today, and I'll give you one example.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of New York, in the counties of Nassau and Suffolk, which are collar counties to Manhattan. Manhattan is probably one of the most liberal places in the United States of America, right? So the collar we've been saying has been failing for years, if not decades. Yesterday in New York, the Republican Party swept all of the county and local races. There is now a county executive in Nassau that's a Republican, Suffolk that's a Republican, the prosecuting attorney's offices, the comptroller's offices, all of the higher level county council offices. What Bongino said today. Apparently, we haven't hit rock bottom everywhere.
Yeah, no, and I
people
think that's important. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the other thing about this is that when Republicans lose elections, it's national news. When they win elections, it's kind of just swept under the rug. So not making excuses for yesterday or any elections in the past, but it is important to paint the full picture. Tim, great stuff. Really appreciate your time this evening out there at the Debate Watch Party. Tell your partner that he is on deck. We're going to be calling him in just a moment. And, of course, be listening tomorrow afternoon back here at the radio station. Really appreciate your time, my friend. Have a great night.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to tell you guys, the audience loved it. They're so happy we did this. Hopefully we do it again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a great time. I wish I was there. It sounds like an absolute party. Really appreciate it. Tim Jones there live at Westport Playhouse for our Debate Watch Party. Yeah, before we take another break, I want to ask you your own, and I want Katie's thoughts too, your own question. Who are you? So Tim said if he could narrow it down to three, it's Nikki Haley and Vivek for sure, and then a toss-up between DeSantis and Tim Scott. Who are your three?
DeSantis, Vivek, and Nikki Haley. I'm sorry, Katie. I'm going to go right to you as soon as I'm done with what I'm saying here, because I want to hear from you. That paper behind you right there on top is Kentucky's results from last night, and you'll see that in the governor's race, the Democrat incumbent won by 60,000 votes. But look at those other races, Tony. 5 other races where the Republican won by more than 200,000 in 4 out of those 5, and the other one was over 100,000. So it wasn't a washout in Kentucky like the mainstream media told you.
Yeah.
That's why what you said is true. Republicans win elections. Nobody makes a big deal about it because nobody tells the public about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Katie, what's on
Still
your mind?
disappointing, though.
Yeah.
Still disappointing results that are, to somebody like me at least, baffling.
No, I get it. And that Republican candidate, the black guy, he was the attorney general during the Breonna Taylor thing, if you remember that.
Yep. Oh.
And they were calling him Uncle Tom back then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
I
that's why he
remember
didn't.
who that is. What's his name? I know
What's his name?
it.
It's
Yeah.
right up there. It's right on that paper.
God, I know what his name is, but I can't remember. Christian? I can't remember.
Who are your three, Katie, if you could narrow this down to 3 for the next debate?
I think that definitely Nikki Haley. I I like Vivek Ramaswamy because of his energy. It's definitely more controlled energy, but he doesn't have the experience policy-wise, so I don't know how seriously people are actually taking him. But I guess, let's say for entertainment purposes, I will say Vivek, Nikki, and then I still say Ron DeSantis, even though he's kind of a bump.
I had a feeling it'd all be we all say the same thing.
Yeah.
So his name is Daniel Cameron.
Daniel
Oh, yeah,
Cameron.
yep,
That's
yep.
what it. Yeah. I remember that.
Good candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Don't rule out cheating. Sorry. Hate to be the little bitch about it. Don't rule out cheating.
No, I agree. I understand all of those things. I still cannot believe that any Democrat wins a high-profile race
in Kentucky.
In the United States,
Even more so in Kentucky.
with what we have been through over the last 2 years with this Biden administration.
You're right.
It just seems like that anybody would think that this is not the path to be on. So I continue to be baffled.
I'm baffled
when
with you.
there's election results.
Almost
like we
as
saw
baffled
last
as the age in between your children, the separation of age in between all your
night.
children.
Yeah, it's a big
Quite
mis-
baffling.
Yeah, it is.
You've said
baffling.
that.
Big mistake. Yep. Yeah, for sure. You're listening to special coverage of the presidential debate here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL, and we will go back out live to Westport Playhouse to talk to Chris Arps next.
America Decides 2024
on News Talk STL.
Bring your family to the 4th annual Moolah Festival of Trees to experience a winter wonderland with over 40 exquisitely decorated Christmas trees with amazing gift packages November 19th through 26th at the Moolah Shrine. Purchase raffle tickets for just $1 for a chance to take home one or more of these creative and beautifully designed trees, including the gifts, which include toys, tools, sports items, kayaks, barbecue pits, gift cards, and even a complete HVAC system for your home. Tree values range from $500 to over $12,000. The Festival of Trees is an exciting Christmas event for all ages. You can take a souvenir photo with Santa Claus to capture a memory of the spirit of Christmas. And be sure to visit Santa's Cafe for some refreshing treats. Adult admission is $2. Kids 12 and under are free at the Moolah Shrine Center at 12545 Fifi Road. Details at moolah.org.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back into the studio here at 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo with Vic Porcelli and Katie Fitzpatrick reacting to tonight's presidential debate. We are going to talk to Vic's buddy Ken Williams, who, of course, you can hear every day with Vic here on News Talk STL. He has been monitoring the various chat boxes on social media. We're going to check in with Ken in just a few moments, but right now, let's go back out live to Westport Playhouse and our debate watch party tonight and talk to my old friend and my old partner, Weekend Report in the house, Chris Arps. Buddy, what a night tonight. Sounds like it was a great time at Westport Playhouse. Thanks for joining us.
Tony, it was a great night tonight, but at 57 years old, you use way too many olds in there in our description of it.
I don't want to hear your problems.
Chris Arps.
My ass bleeds for you.
Man, we had a great time out here. You know, we always love doing remotes. We always like doing these type of events because we are out here with the listeners. It was a festive time, and people were ready for the debate. And as you heard Mike Ferguson say earlier, people were very animated with some of Vivek Ramaswamy's lines and some of the other candidates.
Yeah. Vivek, I don't know if you heard me earlier say it's always either a home run or a strikeout with Vivek. He either knocks it out of the park or he says something that gets him booed. You know, the line about NBC and the moderators was one of the greatest lines I've ever heard. And then the weird attack on Nikki Haley and her daughter, like for really no reason, is just it's all or nothing. But it's certainly entertaining. And that line about that to me, Vic, I don't know what that line at the beginning, Vivek's attack of the moderators and NBC and Ronna McDaniel, that was the moment of this debate. That was,
There's
to
no
me,
doubt
the
in my
biggest
mind.
standout moment.
That was the number one, standing up to NBC. And number two, shoot him
Shoot 'em
cold,
dead.
stone cold dead. Those
Yeah.
were the two big
Yeah.
things I'll never forget.
DeSantis needed a line. That was a great line. I don't know if it was enough to save his
No, I agree with that.
performance, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was another great line. Chris, what were your biggest takeaways?
Let me give you my 6 takeaways, guys.
Okay, here we go.
Number
Write 'em
one, Vivek Ramaswamy is still annoying. Two,
I agree.
2, Nikki Haley was not prepared for the front runner status. I don't think she was ready for all of the people going after her because she has been surging. She made a gaffe, I think, when she called Vivek Ramaswamy scum after he made that comment about her daughter. She's got to do better than that because she's going to be having all the slings and arrows at her coming up. My third takeaway was Hugh Hewitt was AWOL for the first 45 minutes of the debate.
Boy,
when he
no
asked
kidding.
the first question, I freaking forgot that he was even part,
No
of,
kidding, Chris.
part
Yeah.
of the debate.
Yeah, you're right.
My fourth takeaway, Chris Christie was much more subdued than I expected. He tried to play the statesman role tonight. I thought for sure when Ramaswamy came out hitting hard that Chris Christie was going to match him and with insults, but he did not. He stayed as a statesman. That surprised me. Tim Scott showed a lot more passion than he has shown in these other debates. He's got a great grasp of the issues. He's just not inspiring. And last but not least, which surprised me, abortion was not mentioned until the last 40 minutes of the debate. I would have thought they would have let off with that and try to make that a theme of this debate because, Republicans are not doing so well on that issue. So those are my 6 takeaways. What do you guys think?
Those are good ones. I want to dig into a couple of them here, but I want to start with the Nikki Haley point. Katie, I know that you have been impressed with Nikki Haley in these debates and throughout this process. What do you think when you hear Chris Arp say that this performance was her showing that she's not ready for the big stage?
I'm not saying that. She's ready for the big stage, but if she's going to be the front runner, she's got to know you're going to start taking a lot of slings and arrows now. And when people are attacking you, you got to laugh it off and play it off instead of looking visibly angry as she did several times.
I think that that's just a hard thing for her to do. And I do agree with you. I do agree with you. But I think it might just be a hard thing because there is a navigation, and I am going to play this card. I'm sorry, everybody. You can agree or disagree with it. I think it is a little bit harder of a navigation because she is working amongst a lot of men. And so, whenever you do have to put on a front and say, I can brush my shoulders off, because she probably works in an environment and she just worked in an administration with a bunch of men as well. But I think in an environment where you're up on the stage and you're with 4 other men and you are the only woman and the arrows are flying at you, there is that moment of being like, well, am I going to buck up or am I going to shut up? And so maybe she's choosing to kind of fight and get her knuckles dirty. That's why she used the word scum whenever Vivek Ramaswamy was talking, because maybe she feels like in that moment, I'm playing with the big dogs. Like I'm here to get rough. So I don't know. Is that wrong or is that right, Chris? I don't know.
No, I think it's good analysis. Female politicians always have to be careful because if they come across as too hard or too aggressive, then that turns people off. But if they're more womanly, more feminine, people say they're not tough enough.
Right.
So
It's
there's
a
always a
delicate line.
fine line that a female politician has to try to walk.
Chris, I'm glad you touched on the abortion issue because we're definitely going to talk about this tomorrow on Columbo and Katie as well. This may be a difficult conversation or an unpopular thought among Republicans and conservatives. We saw it yesterday, and we have seen a lot of pro-choice bills passing in places across the country. And what is really, I think, disgusting about those is many of these bills have no limitations or very few restrictions on abortion. I am, very unpopularly pro-choice on this radio station, but I have extreme restrictions. I think that it should be 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. I think all late term, all partial birth. I think there should be very, very rigid restrictions on the procedure. And so from that standpoint, Chris, I want to start with you. So looking at it from that standpoint, I think that Republicans are losing on this issue, and these bills are passing because it's all or nothing. I think if they would be more willing to discuss restrictions, that they could make progress on this area instead of losing state after state to these crazy bills that have no limitations on this procedure, because in my opinion, they don't seem like they want to move. Is that a fair criticism? What do you think?
I said this on the show today that I think one of the reasons why Republicans are losing the messaging on this is because we have so many different positions. You've got Ron DeSantis, 6 weeks in Florida. You've got Tim Scott saying he will sign the strictest bill that'll go to his desk. You've got the Susan B. Anthony list that is at 15 weeks. And I think when you have all those different views on the restrictions, that it's easy for the Democrats, the pro-choice crowd, to say, look, they really ultimately just want to end abortion, and that's why they're all over the map on the restrictions. I think if we can come up with maybe 15 weeks, that's what the Susan B. Anthony list, that's what they're for, and can come to a consensus on that, I think this issue won't hurt us as much. And we have to change the messaging. In politics, people want to know what you're for, not what you're against. And we look like we are against abortion. We look like we want to take away females' rights. What we should be talking about when it comes to this 15 weeks is when scientists say that a baby can feel pain. And I think if you use that argument, hey, 15 weeks, because that's when a baby can feel pain, I think maybe we can get some more consensus on our position. As I said this afternoon, we can start at 15 weeks, but to get down to zero abortions, which what we all ultimately want, we got to change hearts and minds. We're not going to legislate people into not wanting abortions.
Katie, what do you think of that idea? Am I being too harsh on the pro-life crowd when I say that maybe the right way to start is to negotiate a little bit, or is that ridiculous? You got to hold the line.
It's really difficult to say because most Americans, I think just America in general, if you took a poll, would say that they're majority pro-choice. But the thing that makes conservatives is their stance on pro-life. And although I do completely agree with Chris in saying that there's a lot of different measurements of weeks being thrown out there about negotiation tactics which I'm not completely against when it comes to rape and incest and those things, but I just had a baby a year ago, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I knew the gender of my baby at 8 weeks. I could hear Maeve's heartbeat at 6 weeks. So anything past hearing Maeve's heartbeat, you ain't going to make me budge. If I got to see her at 6 weeks. It ain't no joke. And so it's a little bit like almost like, wow, that the Susan B. Anthony list would say 15 weeks. But that's where the problem right now with the pro-life community is that you are right in saying the measurement in weeks is like none of us, we can't get that down. We can't solidify what that is.
Yeah, no.
And Katie, Tony, let me just say this, and that's also why the left and these pro-choice groups are so adamantly against these pregnancy resource centers that show women sonograms of their baby, because 9 times out of 10, once the woman sees that baby growing inside her and can hear the heartbeat and all that, they don't want to have an abortion.
It's
they
very
know
real,
that's a life
Chris.
inside of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just makes me sick that these bills are passing that have no limitations and have these late term and all these other Like, that has got to stop. And if it takes a little bit of negotiation to eliminate those barbaric practices, I don't see how that's not a step in the right direction. But again, I know that I hold a different opinion than many. Chris, thank you so much, buddy, for checking in with us
Guys, I
from the watch
enjoyed it.
party. Yeah, we'll be listening tomorrow afternoon when Chris is back in studio with Tim Jones, and we'll be listening then, Chris. Thanks, bud.
Is Vic awake? Vic, wake up!
He's there.
Nobody addressed me. I'm not going to interrupt my
I'm
colleagues
gonna-
here.
I'm gonna-
I
yeah.
do want to say, okay?
Yes, please.
You said Chris is your old partner.
Yeah.
But he showers with me every morning.
Well,
That's true.
Congratulations.
Who's more intimate with Chris?
But as much as he
Thanks,
asks, I'm not going to loofah that stretch mark. I'm not going to do it.
Love you, Vic. Love you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Thanks so
Chris.
much. Great stuff from out there live at Westport Playhouse at our debate watch party with Americans for Prosperity.
Can I say one
And-
quick thing
yes,
real quick?
please.
I've said for weeks and weeks that Republicans can't circle the wagons like Democrats can when it
Yeah.
comes to
We talked about that on our show, too.
narratives,
You're
right?
right.
You're so right.
And here's where Republican pro-life people are stuck because you have to give up your principles to win an election.
Morality. You have to give up a lot of your principles, morale. I mean, that's
I mean, when they were not ready for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Even though they talked about it for
Yeah.
50 years,
You're right.
they weren't ready for when it actually happened and what was going to be the narrative when it actually happened. They blew it.
that's so right.
If an agreement on, at least for now, on a very restrictive, pick the number, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, restrictive law that in place would stop these other bills from passing across the country that basically have no limitations, I just don't see how that's not at least a step in the right direction.
You're right.
Because I cannot believe that those barbaric practices are still winning votes.
But you say, I know we have to
Winning
go to break,
bills,
but there is something to what you just said, and that is a very deep-rooted thing that you're asking people
I know.
to give up.
I know. It's a very
And that's,
sensitive.
I mean, Tim Jones said it perfectly, and that was to the point of principle. This is like at the core belief and value of what you believe is humanity. And that, like, when you get it down to that, there is going to be so much debate, and it's hard to see the forest for the trees when you're like, if you do give an inch, you could stop the barbaricness. You're asking people to
I
give up
understand.
their
Katie, you
humanity.
nailed it. When
Yeah,
you heard
no,
your
you did.
daughter's heartbeat,
Yeah.
that was it. It was over.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
We're late.
You're listening to special coverage of the presidential debate, and you're listening to Tony Colombo, Vic Porcelli, and Katie Fitzpatrick in the studio, and we are going to be joined by Ken Williams, who has been manning the social media channels all evening, and check in with Ken and the discussions that he has been having throughout the debate tonight. Next.
Whoosh.
This is America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Vincent's Jewelers can help you pick the best gift for someone special. Another reason I like Vincent's has helped raise more than $1.5 million for local charities. Vincent's, locally owned, serving the community more than 42 years. Whenever I'm asked, what's your favorite jewelry store? My only jeweler is Vincent's on Olive, east of 270. Give Vincent's a chance to make you happy. Check for daily specials. Vincent's Jewelers Facebook or vincentsjewelers.com.
Hey, Colombo here with a great offer from the cleaning pros at Zero Res. Just mentioned the Colombo special when you book a cleaning in November, and you'll get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned starting at just $129 plus $50 off an air duct cleaning. We trust Zero Res because they're simply the best when it comes to cleaning any surface in your home, and they stand behind every cleaning with their gotta love it guarantee. Just remember to mention the Colombo special when you call 314-474-2020 or book online at ZeroResSTL.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
America Decides 2024.
This is special coverage of America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back into the studio here at News Talk STL. Tony Colombo with Katie Fitzpatrick and Vic Porcelli. Sounds like it was a great night out at Westport Playhouse and our debate watch party out there. Another big thank you to Westport Playhouse and Americans for Prosperity for being such great partners on an awesome event. And as we have been listening to and reacting to the debate all night, our buddy Ken Williams has been manning the social media platforms. And Ken, I know that there's been a lot of discussion happening on the various social media platforms throughout the evening. You've been in the middle of all of that. What are some of your biggest takeaways and things that people are reacting to that you've seen tonight?
Hey guys, yeah, great job tonight, by the way. Listener Amy said, I'm not trying to be snarky. I literally forgot Ron DeSantis was there tonight. He's struggling. And I kind of agree with that.
Well, what do you think about Vivek Ramaswamy? I mean, we've talked. You and I have talked to Kathy Barnett, his grassroots director, coming out and, boy, I almost cursed right there on Lester Holt.
Yeah, I think it was awesome. I think he should have followed up with something a little, maybe even a little bit less tactful. And just kind of kept that whole intensity the whole way through. I think he overshot when he said something about Nikki Haley's daughter, but I don't think it was intense enough to call him scum.
Right.
By Nikki Haley. I think that was an unforced error on her part.
Am I the only person that liked the scum comment? I thought it was fine.
I thought it was funny. But you know how people are going to react to this stuff, Katie.
Yeah.
We take it and we go, yeah, whatever. But you got people that are going to really take that and just run with it as, oh, that was just so horrible.
Let's ask Ken about Ken. Did you notice that Tim Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy were kind of like whispering to each other
did you
there?
see the moment where they were like buddy to buddy?
Nikki Haley was talking, I think.
Yeah, that was.
Did you see that?
Yeah, what do you guys think that was about? Because
I
I
don't
think,
know.
okay, let me step back a little bit. I think that this was a run for the cabinet positions and possibly a VP spot. I think everybody except for Chris Krispy Kreme were. I think everybody, with the exception of him, were looking for a spot, and I don't think that they attacked Trump like that. I thought that some people thought they might do tonight.
Ken, in the discussions that you were having and the comments that you were seeing on social media, and then also just you personally, was there somebody that stood out above the rest tonight? A winner?
I would say, between Vivek and Nikki Haley, that was kind of expected, though, I think. One thing I was watching, you guys, I wanted to watch those moderators because I have this theory, and I had this before that even started tonight. I thought what they were going to try and do from NBC, because I don't trust it, the legacy Pfizer media anyway. But I thought that NBC was going to be light on all of these candidates because they didn't want to rough them up too much because they want one of them to beat Trump eventually. They don't want Trump in there.
Mm-hmm. Can I bring up, so I brought up the abortion issue in that last segment, and we'll get more into that, I'm sure, on all of our shows tomorrow. But another one that stood out to me tonight, and we're kind of talking about it right now, the TikTok discussion. And every person on that stage tonight, vehemently says that they will ban TikTok. And a lot of them, that was their chance to attack Trump. Trump tried and couldn't get it done. Look, I'm the last person that's going to stick up for TikTok because I think of if there's any of the social media platforms that like drain your brain and like kill brain cells and kill attention span, it's TikTok. But to act like TikTok, I just don't agree. Get here another unpopular opinion from Tony. All these apps, all these social media platforms are stealing your data. They're all corrupt and doing bad things. I know, Chinese government. I get it. But if you're going to ban TikTok for stealing data and doing bad things and underhanded things, it doesn't stop at just TikTok. I just don't get the TikTok is the boogeyman over all of them. I know why, because it's owned by the Chinese government. I get it, but if you think that other people aren't doing just as bad things with your data as the Chinese government is, I just think you're wrong. You're getting stolen from. I don't agree with putting TikTok at the top of this list, Vic. What do you? Am I wrong?
I don't know. Here's the thing: if you Macau in China is one of the biggest gambling. It's the biggest gambling mecca in the world, bigger than Las Vegas by a long shot. So poker players and stuff, when they go over to China, they know don't plug in and charge your phone at the Macau airport, because they're taking your information right there. That spy balloon taking information. I think taking information is the one thing on the top of the list of the Communist Chinese Party. I also think
I agree.
Just like when they would do a thing on the Today Show about the vaccines, the very first commercial was Pfizer. They did the TikTok conversation. First commercial was TikTok.
Ken, what are your thoughts on my TikTok opinion there? Oh, did we lose him?
Ken, he left us?
We lose Ken?
Look, see, you pissed off Ken.
Yeah.
I hope you're
Ken
happy.
is no longer with us.
What do you think?
Stand by, people.
Well, we're almost done, Katie. So what do you think about that? I mean, you work in social media is part of your job here at the radio station, so you know how these social media platforms work. Again, not sticking up for TikTok, but they're all stealing.
Yeah.
They're all doing bad, corrupt things with your data.
I think they're all doing whatever we signed up for is what they're doing.
Is TikTok that much worse that it should be the one talked about by presidential candidates of getting banned in the country? Is it that much worse than the others?
I guess you have to, if you are seriously considering banning TikTok, you have to say, is it worse that Facebook is an American company selling your information to places like TikTok? Or is it worse for a Chinese company that you willingly signed up for having your data?
Right. Are you telling me that Facebook or Twitter or anywhere else isn't, that the data doesn't end up in the hands of the Chinese government somewhere anyway, just because it's not a Chinese company? I mean, give me a break. We talked about it the other day. My mom wanted her piano out of her house, so we moved it to my house. I never typed the word piano. I never said anything about moving a piano on a computer or a Google search or anything. All of a sudden, I'm getting piano lesson commercials popping up like crazy when I watch YouTube. They are spying on me and you.
Do you know how many fish commercials come up on my Facebook feed?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that with TikTok, one thing I think about TikTok is it's a distraction. Have you noticed what nobody talked about in any of these debates or at any time? The Uyghurs who were rounded up, heads shaved, put on the trains to concentration camps. I remember when that happened once before. And nobody cares. Literally, nobody cares about the Uyghurs. Nobody.
So we will all pick this up tomorrow on our various shows. About a minute to go.
Yep.
So just 20 seconds for everybody. Katie, last thought on tonight.
I thought it was a healthy debate. I thought we got a lot more information out of all these candidates than we have the two previous. And I think we all picked the winners of tonight, but I guess we'll see who really is the big winner against Trump.
I hate Lester Holt more now than I ever have. That's all I'm saying.
That's my comment.
And I've always hated him. Always hated him.
I don't think that I think that it was I think there were some great moments. I think that there were some important things discussed and said. I love Vivek's line attacking the media and calling out the Republican Party for why are we doing a debate on NBC after everything that they've done to us.
Smart move.
He's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong at all. At the end of the day, I don't think that people like, especially Ron DeSantis, but also Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, did any more. I don't feel any better about them today as I did after the other two debates.
Agreed.
I don't think any ground was really made.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet.
Thanks
Vic
for being
Porcelli Show tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Columbo and Katie at 2 o'clock.
Wish my supervisors.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Back at ya. You've been listening to special coverage here on News Talk STL.
You're listening to America Decides 2024 on News Talk STL.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Tasha Stevens. The third Republican presidential debate is being held tonight in Florida. 5 GOP hopefuls have taken the stage to make their case to voters. Edwin Mora brings us up to date.
The GOP rivals clashed over foreign policy, including Israel's war against Iran-backed Hamas terrorists, funding for Ukraine, the China threat to America,